All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most powerful ideas at the heart of the European Union, this right for any citizen to just move freely between countries. Now, on the surface, it sounds simple, right? But believe me, the implications are absolutely massive.
So here's the big question that gets right to the core of the whole European project. Can someone from, say, Italy, really just pack up their life and go start over in Sweden? The answer is a huge, resounding yes. But, understanding the how and the why behind that yes, well, that's where you find the real magic of what it means to be an EU citizen.
To really wrap our heads around this freedom, we have to start with the idea of EU citizenship itself, because it's not just some little add-on to your national citizenship. Nope, it's a whole separate legal status that comes with its own very powerful set of rights. And look at the language the European Court of Justice uses here. They call it the fundamental status. That's not just flowery language. They're saying this isn't some bonus feature you get. They're telling us that inside the EU's legal world, this is a core part of your identity. And it's from this status that all these other rights, especially the right to move, actually flow.
Okay, so where do these rights actually come from? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to look at the legal bedrock for the free movement of workers, and you'll find it right there in Article 45 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union.
And here it is. At its absolute unshakable core, free movement is about getting rid of any discrimination based on nationality between workers. What that means is, an employer in Germany just can't treat an applicant from Poland differently than a German applicant, simply because of their passport. The whole point is to create one single unified job market across Europe.
So what does that actually look like in the real world? It's not just some vague idea. It translates into real concrete rights. You have the right to accept a job offer that's on the table, the right to physically move to that country for the job, the right to live there while you're employed, and yep, even the right to stay there after the job ends, as long as you meet certain conditions. It's the whole package, all designed to make working across borders feel totally seamless.
Okay, so we've established the right is there. It's real, but how does it actually work? I mean, what are the practical steps you take to move to another EU country and actually set up shop?
Well, lucky for us, the whole process is laid out in a super important piece of EU law called the Citizenship Directive. You can think of it as the official rulebook that all the member countries have to play by. And it makes one thing really clear. Becoming a resident isn't just one single event, it's more like a journey with a few distinct stages.
Let's walk through it together. Stage 1. For the first 3 months, you can pretty much live in any other EU country. No real questions asked. It's a free pass. Now, to stay longer, anywhere from 3 months up to 5 years, you usually need a reason. You're working, you're a student, or you can just show that you have enough money to support yourself so you won't be a drain on their social system. And then, you hit the final stage. After 5 years of living there legally and continuously, you get the right of permanent residence. And that is a much more secure status.
Now, I know this all sounds incredibly open and expansive, and it is. But, just like any big fundamental right, it's not totally absolute. The EU treaties actually build in some very specific, very narrow exceptions where a country can put the brakes on this freedom.
And this right here is the key principle to remember. Yeah, exceptions exist, but they have to be interpreted in the narrowest possible way. A country can't just use them as a catch-all excuse to limit who comes in. You could say the default setting in EU law is always freedom.
So what are these justifications? Well, a country can restrict someone's movement for reasons of public policy, public security, or public health. But, and this is so important, any decision has to be based on that specific person's current behavior and a real, genuine threat right now. What they absolutely cannot do is act for what's called general prevention, trying to make an example out of someone to scare others off. And they can't deny entry just because of a criminal conviction from the past. It's got to be about the here and now.
So let's just zoom out and bring this all together. Why is this right to move so important? Why is it not just another policy, but something that goes so much deeper?
Well, there was this landmark court case called Ruiz-Zambrano that pushed this idea even further. The court basically said that a member country can't make a decision that would result in an EU citizen being effectively forced to leave the entire EU. In other words, a country's own rules can't be allowed to basically strip someone of the genuine enjoyment of their rights as an EU citizen by kicking them out.
And really, that's the bottom line. This all started out as a right for workers, a purely economic idea. But over time, it's grown into something so much more profound. The right to move, to live, to work, and to build a life anywhere in the Union. That is now a core part of the very identity of being an EU citizen.
So you see, this right has been shaped and reshaped over decades by treaties, by laws, by court cases. It's evolved from a simple economic rule into a pillar of who you are. And that whole journey just leaves us with this one big, fascinating question for the future. As the European Union itself continues to change and face new challenges, how is this fundamental status of being a citizen going to evolve right along with it?